And we're live. I should have looked at what number this was. It's at the top. There you go. Blog Thursday number 423. I just threw Homelab Q&A up there. Actually, Matt did. For those of you who don't know, Matt's behind the scenes, twisting knobs and making some of these things work. It's a little bit short notice. I know. It's because the timing and scheduling of today did not go as planned. But I have a speaking engagement that I'm going to go to in person. So I have a finite amount of time before I got to drive out to do this. Every now and then I like doing talks in person. People ask me to do it a lot, and I kind of, it's as much as I enjoy it, I love like the actual act of presenting, but it can be hard. Sometimes there's a lot of trips and flying involved, so I try to limit how many of those I will do. Of course, if someone dangles a giant paycheck in front of me, I sometimes do those. So by the way, I'm not saying I won't do them. If you're flying, if you're buying, I'm flying. So I definitely end up doing those ones. I've done some fun paid speaking gigs as well. But the gig tonight is something that is already been a video done on. So that's me talking about open source SIM and log management. So there's a complete video. I've done this already. And I kind of like doing presentations in person when I can let them know, like, hey, this presentation you can completely find online. I have all of it as well. So you can, be interactive here more so than you can on a video, because I do reply to comments, but it's not really the same as interacting. So I kind of have fun when I'm in the crowd, and maybe the presentation gets a little bit more animated, but yeah, that's what I'll be doing today. There are a lot of videos in the works right now, and the distractions have been making it a little bit difficult, but building the lab was my biggest distraction because you keep obsessing over it. You're like, but I can still do one more thing. I can still change this one thing over. And last night, I mostly finished things with another. I started the lab video, and then I was like, I'm distracted again because this is sitting on my table. It's on my bench. And it can't just sit here on the bench. It needs to be assembled. And for those of you that don't know, this is the 45 drives HL8. I couldn't let it sit there. It's only been there a couple days, but I was like, I gotta get this plugged in. I gotta get this all set up and configured. And then as distractions go, I also was looking at this going, that's interesting. You know what? I should order one of these and also do a video on that. So there's one I didn't want to take this one out because it's nice. It's working now. And I bought another one though, because I want to do a demo and explain how these work to people. I want to dive a little bit more into that topic. I want to build some fun ways to assemble some of these RAID servers. So yeah, that's high on my to-do list, because with the HL8, as I review it, there'll be times where I'm going to want to do a separate video to deep dive into how that particular piece of this works. Because I think a lot of you might be interested, and there's always a lot of discussion on those, and people want to know if they can build it themselves. And yes, the answer is you can build it yourself. You can buy some of these, and like I said, I'll explain more in depth how they work and how they function. I think I have. Let me find it real quick, and I'll share it back out. I have a lot of photos. Somewhere, maybe not somewhere. Well, I posted some pictures on YouTube, so I'll pull them up there. I do have some more pictures of the HL8 for those of you that haven't seen it. Definitely pretty cool. So let me where do those pictures go? For those of you that don't know, I'm a little skeptical on this, but it works. This is the social feed, I guess you call it. I don't know. I think that's the term for it, that YouTube has built in. I notice a lot of people comment on it and see things on it. I actually have never personally used it. I've only posted things from my channel, but maybe it's because I watch too much of YouTube on TV or on my computer, so I never really think about it. I guess this social feed, I'm assuming, shows up more so in people's phones. I don't know. But yeah, the 45 drives HL8, definitely pretty cool. And I also posted a picture of the HL15. Now, both of them are sporting these Noctua fans. Man, it does make them really nice because they are just quiet. I will definitely say that's a big benefit to those. Community, that's what it's called. Yeah. So it seems to be. I started to use it more. Just it's an easy way for me to share things. I share some of these same things on other social platforms, but that's kind of, not everybody's on every social platform, and some people seem to have strong opinions that you should or shouldn't be on each one. We load things up in a tool called Buffer, and it puts it all out to social platforms. I then go back later and look, and I try to reply to people on each of the platforms. It becomes like I don't spend a ton of time on social media personally. Like I have more direct engagements with people with things. I just feel that's a lot better. But okay, more on mobile. All right, that's how that works. And by the way, Cody did a good job on the firewall zone videos. I think it's good to have lots of people explaining this because the zone firewall videos, they're a getting an understanding of how these things work is a little bit different for people. So I'm working on my video of it too to break down how zones work, why it makes sense to use zones. So I'm taking a different approach by creating a series of graphics that explain what a zone firewall is, why that matters, and kind of building on that so that I'll have timestamps for everything, but it's all about the community. And I love that more people are doing some videos on this because getting these concepts through is not easy. It's easy for people who are practitioners when you do it all the time, but a lot of people are coming at it going, hey, I want to get into this. I want to be able to create some rules. And everybody learns differently. So I like that there's like different people explaining it at different ways because one of those ways will click for you and the others may not. So I'm excited to get that video out there though, because this is the one place where UniFi is really, they've done a good job of getting there in terms of having all the features now. The documentation is lacking and it's basic. It's not incorrect or inaccurate documentation. It just needs more documentation. Yeah. So, and that's where some of those challenges come in. And this is where many open source projects, a successful or not successful or open source project really has to do with its ease of use and documentation. There's probably tons of wonderful open source tools out there that lack any solid documentation. So it's like, cool, I bet that tool does everything if I could figure out how it did it. And so that can be kind of a challenge. UDM Pro 4 years old. I I was looking up, and there's not a clear answer on this of just how long their support cycle is with UniFi. Um, it seems to be quite a number of years. They've got so many devices that have been around a long time. I generally try to lean into products that have come out more recently because they don't. I wish, and I will, push any company to do this to get better end of life dates because this is a really valid question. It's not an easy one to answer, and I wouldn't say absolutely that I guarantee that they will support it for. I mean, I think they've been doing 7 or 8 years in some of their other devices, maybe. And actually some of the edge firewalls are still supported, so they've gone really longer on those, which is amazing. And but that's not in writing somewhere, so that is from a consumer standpoint, do I spend something and find out in 2 years it's outdated? 2 years for that price is kind of a long time for a firewall, so maybe spend more, but then the next one up is quite a bit jump. Yeah, I don't have an easy answer on that. I wish I did. uh, i'm I just got Dado S4 from work for free, and yeah, it's loud. I'm debating swapping the fans with Arctic Cooling P8 Max fans. Um, I wish I had an Noctua PPC fan 60. Yeah, the upgrading the fans on some of those. It's funny. One of the UniFi switches, the Gen ones, we swapped the fans inside of it to be little Noctuas. I forgot we did that. When I was rebuilding, tearing apart the old lab and building a new one, I took apart one of the switches. And I'm like, look at that! It's got a Noctua fan in it. That thing is like, I don't know, 7 years old. It's still supported, still a good switch. But yeah, it's a it's those little fans. Some of the Noctua and third party fans are really good. Me and Matt were just talking about this today. Is you know the fans in there have made a big difference. The when I got my HL15 about a year ago, it had normal fans in it. So the normal fans were good, but they were not quiet at all. And I have it in a separate area, but that was actually the loudest thing in my lab was the 45 tries box. So I'm actually happy that it's now no longer the loudest thing in there. One of the things missing from unified firewalls, you wish they give more routing options. What is the routing option you are looking for? I think a lot of people are setting these up in their home. I don't think they're waiting on me to do a firewall zone video to build a business around it. I think they're wanting to. I interact with a lot of people that go, I'm tired of what the internet provider gave me for free with their service, or they're tired of the generic. I don't know what is the consumer routers today. I don't know which models are popular. I know it's not the Linksys anymore, or maybe it is. But I think a lot of people are going, well, I want to get something more, and how does that work? And the out of the box configuration for UniFi at least is secure. Like if you plug it in, it'll route traffic and it'll do so in a rational, sane state. But people want to go, how do I configure and segment things more? And that's kind of where I like to help people out and go, you can dive into this and make it a little bit better and expand it from there. How long something lasts and how long something is supported are very, very different things. I actually have a video on this because a lot of people in this was interesting to me to learn were burned by Cisco, and I was like, Cisco, really? And this became an interesting discussion amongst me and a few other techs of when someone told me they were burned by Cisco for short life, and I'm like, really? So Cisco had, and I provided all the links and everything in a video. I just very few Cisco videos on my channel, so if you search it, you'll find it. But it was about Cisco supporting stuff for only a couple of years, and they actually had supported the product for longer. But the end of sale date and the end of support were only this short time apart. And because you don't know when Cisco's going to drop support for it, you're like, oh, I'll buy these Cisco switches. And Cisco's like, yeah, 2 years later, they're out of support. I mean, I feel that companies should keep supporting a switch from end of sale. I think 5 years is good. Seven's awesome. If obviously some of these companies are doing it for even less, but yeah, it is kind of a challenge out there because I wish companies were like forced into documenting how long they do it for. That would be fantastic because like I think that as a consumer, as a purchaser of products, you're definitely should know that. Video showing practical layout of unified firewalls. Firewall. A video showing unified firewall being used with Netgate 8200 as an edge device or vice versa. I don't understand why people want to do that. I don't get it. I mean, you can double NAT. It works. I did a video on it because so many people ask. And I think even in a video, I asked, why would you do this? But here's how you do it. You can put one in front of the other. I just don't know why you do it. That's the part I don't get. I did a video on them and I get their naming mixed up. So I'm not going to look them up right now, but my video on, I think it's the Max. I explained that a little better. I can't remember. Someone even says one time in the video, I have all the links right, but I conflated with the name once because I get mixed up which one's which. One of them is definitely a little bit better of a buy. That video I cover it, and I just can't remember. We don't really sell those to people. Like people buy them. We're not putting those in for businesses. The businesses we go with like the Unified Dream Machine Pro on up. For the business. Matter of fact, the business ones now we'd probably look at are like probably a UDM SE or something like that. UDM or Pro Max. For businesses, it's not crazy expensive and it's a newer device. But maybe I'll revisit soon a guide for what's good for the home. I still have at my daughter's the really basic one. It works. She's not had any problems with it. I mean, people complain the interface is slow, and they're not wrong. It is, but it works. Like I don't like for my daughter at her house. There's not a lot of setup. She doesn't even have any VLANs because she doesn't need them. She's got like a couple Chromecasts, her gaming desktop that's hardwired in, and that's it. And her husband or fiance's gaming laptop. That's they don't have any devices. I've been using PSS for years, just like the system. I have PoE switches and aggregation from UniFi, so control from all one plane is the main reason for switching. My needs are simple. I mean, yeah, I mean, I like it being all in one place. It's kind of cool. I switched because I wanted to really put it to the use. That way, I can be better at using it. But yeah, why is your Arista louder? Well, anytime most of the enterprise stuff, noise is not a factor when you talk about stuff that's going to go into data centers. Nobody cares. There's nobody, maybe somebody, but generally speaking, nobody's going, hey, man, let's see if we can get this a few dBs quieter. Data centers are loud places. Almost the only difference between UDM Pro and UDM SE is a 2.5 gig in PoE. The SE would be crazy for UniFi to stop supporting the Pro. And yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, if they're using the same processor, I don't see why UniFi would drop support for them at all. I mean, they're still supporting. I think I think the USG is still under support right now. If I had to guess. Do you think the product started by Ubiquiti has diminished their product quality for their main products like AP and switching? I don't think so at all. Matter of fact, I would say the AP and switching is as good as ever. What's your take on MikroTik devices? They're affordable. They're amazing for how many features are in them. The learning curve is what sucks with them. That's the biggest challenge I ever find with them, is just the learning curve and the quirkiness of them. But they work. So if you're willing to take the time to learn them, they're not bad. I don't think they're great for things like central management. I don't think they have any good central management or anything like that. But from a I want to switch standpoint, I love my little MikroTik switch. I thought about revisiting it because I've had it for years, and I love it. Whenever I have a weird project or some testing to do, the MikroTik little 4-port 10 gig switch is amazing. It's got all the features I need to get some data moved over at 10 gigs and have some connectivity. I'm impressed with how well a switch that still sells for $129 works. What are your thoughts on Quick Protocol, which many clients are starting to use? If you know, I was using it until my UniFi syslog started freaking out because DPI couldn't expect it. You know, Cisco wrote a blog years ago, and I remember commenting on it because I talked about Quick when it started becoming a protocol, and Cisco fought against it. Cisco doesn't like it because it breaks DPI. If you want a better, faster internet experience, you use Quick. If you want traffic inspection, you can't use Quick. My answer is doing traffic inspection at the firewall is kind of going to be a short-lived type thing. It's just getting harder and harder to do. And the problem is, especially if we go to encrypted SNI, you're not going to be able to do it without a certificate. The problem is managing certificates is a pain. The way we handle it from a business standpoint, we do traffic management at the endpoint. So I'm not. It is what it is. I prefer people to have a better experience, so we don't do anything to turn it off. Is there any difference between TrueNAS Core and TrueNAS Scale with Active Directory is involved? They should work pretty much the same. As far as I know, there's not any issues with Core, but Core is kind of just on maintenance now. It's not being developed for more features. I don't know what point that'll cause a problem with Active Directory, but if you were building a new server, I would definitely be doing it on scale. It's too early to tell about UniFi switches at the data center. They seem to have built a really reliable switch. I've not had problems with them. Does we have a client? I was on a meeting about an hour ago. We have a client that's going to start trying them. We have two clients. We have one that we're bidding and one that just told us they're going to do it. So the one is a yes for sure. Uh, UniFi seems confident in them. All my testing has gone well with them. I haven't had a problem with them, but there's not any evidence I have of long term because they haven't been out long enough. I haven't had a problem with them, so I'm gonna have to do more testing. But my confidence, like they seem really well made. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do this via like Terraform or things like that. But it's not that there's not a way to essentially manage MikroTik. It's I know some people in the Wisp market that do it. It's not that you can't do it with something like Ansible. It's just not as easy as something like UniFi. Same camera. I'm in my. This is my living room behind me. Quick is substantially faster. So Quick does offer a much faster user experience. TrueNAS has Docker. If you see that TrueNAS now has Docker versus having Proxmox plus LC plus VM, how do you see TrueNAS? I don't understand the question. It's nice to run apps on it. Is that the yes. Hold on, let me respond to something. All right. But yeah, I think I like the apps that run it. I like that they moved to Docker. I don't use Proxmox, so I don't really have, an opinion on it. Apps on Docker versus Proxmox. Do all the same Docker? I don't know. I don't use LXC. Do all the same Docker apps work? Because I don't know that answer. I don't know what challenges you'll face with it, so I can't really answer the question. This as well. I know that LXC with doctors is coming too. So I'm just not an LXC expert to tell you some nuances of what does or doesn't work well. I don't do conference room solutions, so I don't really have an opinion on that. We've done a couple in the past. I can't even remember what we used. I think we used the Yay-Link ones. Docker on TrueNAS or Proxmox and TrueNAS just for shares. I mean, I don't know the disadvantage of doing LXC containers on Proxmox, or if there is one. I don't have I just don't have an answer on that. Every Docker container works as an LXC. Okay. Yeah, I just gotta spend time to tell you if it's not something I'm an expert on. I use Docker. I just don't use anything with LXC containers. I should consult with Jay on it because he's done several videos on LXC containers. There are no packages for layer 7 filtering in pfSense. That's just not a feature of pfSense. Not at all. And by the way, let's go ahead and go to their website because I've told them to fix this. I've mentioned this before. Let me see if I can find it. At one time, products. Okay, IP DNS filtering. All right. So at one time they said on here that they did it. They had some filtering, and they were talking about using application detection, but you don't really have much in a way of management. This is just a detection through Snort. So Snort can identify somebody, but it doesn't really give you control over it. So they have updated it. The biggest disadvantage of using TrueNAS as a hypervisor is your storage options are limited. ZFS. It uses ZVol for storage, but basically using TrueNAS for your hypervisor is extremely basic. It doesn't compare at all to Proxmox. Proxmox is a full-on, lots of features, all the way up to high availability or hyperconverged. It's a great hypervisor. It's a great storage solution for the Proxmox is a great storage solution for how it handles the storage for the VMs compared to, you're right, it's extremely basic how it's handled inside of TrueNAS. It's one of those, you can run a VM in this. Here you go. It doesn't have a lot of other features. It's not bad. It works. It's functional, but it's just not, yeah, it's not very in-depth. Yeah, Snort Suricata, that's detection. It doesn't give you any like controls or filtering for layer 7 inside of pfSense. I currently have a UDM SE running my network and protect. Is the performance jump of offloading the protect to an NVR worth it? Um, I don't, I've not really done enough testing to tell you that. It seems to run pretty well because the way UniFi works, most of the work, the heavy lift, is done in the cameras, not on the NVR. This is actually why the UniFi NVR is not that expensive. It doesn't have much in it. It doesn't have a lot of compute power needed to do anything. So the workload is done on, wow, it's really snowing out. The workload is mostly done on the cameras. So I don't know at what point, I mean, obviously the writes take time and are going to take CPU time to do, but yeah, that's I don't know. I couldn't tell you where that split is on there. How is filtering web content on the endpoint different from doing it on a next generation firewall? Doesn't the agent need to inspect the traffic that's decrypted? No, it doesn't. So it's way different. When you do it on the endpoint, frequently they work with the browser. So with the browser, you have full visibility and that they're hooked right into the operating system. They don't need to decrypt it because it's already decrypted when you're at the operating system. And when you're doing it in a firewall, you have to have a certificate to decrypt it, which causes, there's a lot of challenges because some things use certificate pinning for security reasons. So they don't like extra certificates that they are unaware of being in there because they don't want to be man in the middle. So you end up with a lot of problems, but you avoid that problem because the decryption's already occurred. So some of the more advanced tools that run on the guest or host OS, when you load it on someone's laptop, desktop, etc., they have visibility before it's encrypted. It's the same way that your password manager is able to fill in passwords. Once you're hooked into the browser, you have a lot of power and visibility. I've never used Zen Armor. I have no opinions on it. I use a UDM SC, and since the console update 413 is causing a major issue with sudo packet loss in the ISP. Yeah, I don't know there. Um, I'm trying to remember. I mean, mostly people use the commercial web application firewalls. There was a company. I'm trying to remember who did a video on it. Someone recently did a video on it. I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. It's a no, I can't find it. It's got a funny name, but there is some open source ones out there. I've never used any of them because I just use reverse proxies. I haven't, none of this stuff we have is that advanced where we put web application and firewalls in front of it. I just haven't needed it. I don't spend, like, my website runs WordPress. I don't put a WAF in front of that. My forums run Discourse. I don't put a WAF in front of that. And for clients, we're not doing that much application. Well, we have a few clients that are doing it, but they have commercial enterprise, WAF tools that they are paying a ton of money for. So I can't name anything in the open source space, but there's plenty of commercial ones out there. I'm assuming you're asking about open source. Would you happen to know if shadow mode on the UDM requires multiple WAN IPs? No, it does not. I don't believe it does. I'm going to do a video on that topic pretty soon. Besides Ceph, what other open source options do we have for hyperconverged storage? Ceph is one, obviously, and Linbit is probably the other. XO, Zen Orchestra, and XCP-NG use Linbit on the back end. Yeah, I believe one of the agents, it loads tools on the system. The tool we use is Zoros, and Zorus. We've been using that for a number of years. It works well. There's other competitors out there like that. So any suggestion on using self-host Bitwarden with my iOS devices? It works great as an extension, but my MacBook and Chrome, not clear. I self-hosted Bitwarden, as long as you have the certificates working, it should work. So you do need a valid certificate. So you probably have to put a reverse proxy in front of it. Now, I'm pretty sure shadow mode does not need multiple IPs. I tested it when it came out, and then I didn't really test it more, but I will be testing it pretty soon. Is there a way is there a way for TrueNAS to see a drive in my BIOS that says as foreign in Dell BIOS, or is that BIOS blocking? There's I think the channel's called Art of the Server, and they cover some, and this varies with different HBAs or controller cards that you have inside these Dells. There are BIOS changes you can make. I do not know. But Art of the Server I believe that's a channel that's covered it. You can Google and usually land on their page. It kind of depends on the system. You're running a Rust Desk instance. Interesting. I think Rust Desk is cool. My hesitation for running it in production is, it, to my knowledge, they haven't gone through a code review. That's my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong. I remember it coming up a couple times, and I know a code review is not Absolutely. Matter of fact, the problem with code review is whoever did the code review, they are telling you at least no one as clever as the person who did the code review is able to hack this, or the company that did the code review. But I'm, I think Rust test seems to be getting more popular, so hopefully they do go through a code review. I always worry about those companies is just because it's popular doesn't mean enough people have really looked at it from a security standpoint. And of course, that's a wide gamut because there's some decent security people, and then there's the other people like Tavis Orbandy. And if you looked up the work he does, you're like, okay, that person when he takes something apart, he dives deep and really goes into it. Yeah, Art of the Server A plus channel. They got some great videos on there that talk a lot about the storage servers, Dell, and how they work. TOTP. I did a video on it. The tool is called Aegis. Aegis. There's a video on. If you type in TOTP, you'll find it. If you type in Aegis, I showed how it works. Pretty simple. SD-WAN is my favorite marketing term. SD-WAN means a lot of things to a lot of people. So what exactly are you looking for? Because SD-WAN means anytime we software define a WAN, what do you want to software define about a WAN? You need a laptop for learning. I don't know. Uh, if you want to learn about reverse engineering some of the Apple stuff, the M1 chips are popular. You can find the MacBook Airs for cheap. I don't know where to buy them for cheap. I'm sure if you Google around, I don't sell a lot of hardware. So, well, this is one of the things I want to dive a little deeper on. I'm not an expert on it, but I think I will do a video pretty soon about the way boundaries work. When people get excited because, hey, look, I can load this Docker container, which can update my other Docker containers. Well, there's a lot of boundaries that are broken in security because Docker is sharing the kernel for one. So there's a boundary. They're sitting next to each other, as opposed to when you do virtual machine, there's a much, much more defined separation. The other problem you're going to have is the ability for one Docker container to talk to another offers a lot of convenience, but that also introduces, well, if one Docker container becomes infected, if you will, or taken over or hijacked, it can suddenly talk to the other Docker containers unless you've really done some work to create some separation on them. So I may do a video talking about that because a lot of people go, I'm going to have one machine doing Docker and I'm just going to load everything I find in Docker pull to happiness. But unfortunately, supply chain attacks are extremely common and getting more frequent now. So if someone supply chains attacks some random developer who maintains a Docker image that you like, you kind of have a problem. Having two internet connections, routing streaming apps through one WAN and games go through the other. Well, that's just routing. That's not an SD-WAN thing. That's just routing. That's policy routing. So you can UniFi can do this. PF Sense can do this. You just say, here's my two different WAN connections. These IPs go that way, and these IPs, and UniFi's got, I think, a more granular control over it, or easier control over it, not really granular. In UniFi, you can define it a little bit differently, and you can send it from one place to the other over each WAN. That's not SD-WAN. That's just policy routing. Um, that'd be a much more. I mean, most of the time we're just doing things with SSO and pushing identity And we've got clients like this. All their identity is just tied to a website, so to speak. Through an SSO and setting things. Uh, it's People overthink it, and people want to productize it. So I don't know if I'll do any discussions on that. It's one of those things. People are probably going to be disappointed when they learn, like, oh, you just tied everything to SSO. Yep, we did. It's not like all these companies are trying to build in integrations with applications and do allow listing of certain apps. Those are not bad things. There's even a company that what is that one? They advertise on Risky Business that does it. I mean, when you get to those type of solutions, they're just expensive. It's not that they can't be done. It's, will the client's budget allow for it? Like apps, there's a company, and I can't remember, they have a weird name. They bring you a custom enterprise browser that only allows certain applications. Fantastic. It actually is a great idea from locking things down standpoint, because you need to use their browser, and their browser is, using Chromium, and it only connects to the apps as very defined. But you're like, cool, what's the price tag on that? So it's not that you can't get there with those journeys. Everything's about balance of how do you want to do it. You want to have one SSA. Well, policy routing doesn't care where you're at on the LAN. Policy routing is splitting the WAN traffic to go based on policies. I've not played with it, but there are things you can do with Chrome GPO as well. It comes down to, it's the same thing with people who do application allow listing. Application allow listing is amazing. You can lock a computer down so it's only allowed to run very, very specific applications. The problem is, anyone I know doing that, and I know there's tons of companies out there to offer it, it requires a lot of maintenance, because every time a program gets an update, there's a signature change, and you have to then make sure that same, like QuickBooks is an easy example. That's usually one of the ones that seems to have a lot of changes. If QuickBooks is running, they do an update. Now QuickBooks broke because the allow listing says, I don't recognize that software anymore. So for each component of the system, each application that someone's using gets an update, you have to make sure it's always on the allow list. Now, the companies are supposed to automate it. They tell you in the sales demo, it's sunshine and rainbows, and we automate this, and it's not hard. I don't know anyone using it who doesn't tell me, this thing creates a lot of tickets. That's why everyone's not doing it. Here's the question. I have a self-hosted UniFi controller, UXG Gateway Max Cloud, Gateway Max, and the same price. Why? I don't remember which model is better. I did a video on it so I could remember. I'd have to reference my video. I don't want to say it wrong right now. Are you doing routing distribution on switch, or are you doing it at your firewall? Any benefits to route inter VLAN in the switch? It's less complicated to do it in the firewall. It's easier to do it in a firewall. I do it in the firewall. I don't have that much traffic that crosses VLANs. So it's easier to say this is well, granted, with UniFi, technically, you have one control plane for both the switching and the other side. But yeah, I don't know. I find it simple enough. People really seem to like Image. I haven't used it, so I don't really have an opinion on it. I mean, it looks cool, but I haven't used it. Yeah, you could, as long as you built the policies for Twitch to go over one connection and the game to go over the other, then yes, you have to know. See, the policy routing like pfSense is all IP based. So if you know the grouping of IPs that belong to Twitch and the grouping of IPs that belong to the game, you can implicitly say, like, these go this way and that one goes this way. WAN 1 is for Twitch and WAN 2 is for game. I've never used a Cloudflare load balancer, so I don't have an opinion. I do have to wrap this up, though, as I got to leave here in about 5 minutes. What was your reason to migrate from pfSense to UniFi? I just wanted to try it. A lot of people are asking about it. I wanted to dog fooding is a term a lot of people use where you say, hey, I want to use this myself and make sure it works, and really deeply understand it. But we still support both. So I'm not just a person on YouTube, which I am, but I'm also someone who manages lots of businesses, and we have tons of PFSense solutions out there. So I'm still doing both, and I'll still do videos on both. I usually would want them on their own VLAN, just for extra precautions. Do you build tunnels to client sites for your infrastructure for hosting UniFi? No. You can route UniFi over the public internet. Um, why do they do the HA like that? I don't know. That's a question for them. Best place to learn about zones. There's a few people who've done videos on it. I'm doing one on it. I, I think mine's going to be the best, but Cody did one from Mac Telecom Networks. There's plenty of people that did videos on it. I don't know. I have not watched everyone's video on it. So who did the best video? I don't know. In my opinion, it'll probably be me, but I'm very biased. So I kind of like my own videos, but I'm positive that the other people are probably got good videos. At least I know Cody knows what he's talking about because I know him personally. So Cody from Mac Telecom Networks. Sorry, I call him Cody because I know him, and he does say that he says Cody from Mac Telecom when you go to his channel. But he just did a video on it. I mean, I did not watch all of it because I don't watch everybody's videos, but I watched some of it and I said, it looks he's doing it right. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing, so I trust him. You're biased and like my videos too. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to stop this here because I have a few things to do. Go. Yeah. The video I'll be doing on the zone firewall, though, I mean, I am doing something a little bit different because I'm going to be breaking down with my own graphics to make sure people understand what zones are and why they exist. So yeah, I'm going to make, I mean, I'm going that. I don't know if anyone else has done that. There could be someone. I can't keep up with all the videos that get released, but if you like and subscribe to my channel, you'll know when this video comes out. Should be done soon. My rack tour video is coming up next. That's what I'm actively working on. Yeah. So what is a decent open source patching? I have no idea about any open source patching for Windows. Windows is a monster for patching. And I can't think of anything good. Even the closed source ones, everyone's fighting the Windows beast. That's how I always joke about. We're all fighting it. Everyone's like, the patching for insert name of product sucks when it comes to patching Windows. I'm like, you could just say patching Windows sucks because no matter what you do, patching Windows sucks. So Linux is easy. Linux has its own built-in updating tools, and use those. Yeah. Anyone who works in IT knows the battle against Microsoft. It is what it is. So nothing patches Windows greatly because Windows doesn't like to be patched. It just fights it all the way. All right. Thanks, everyone, and take care.